Today I'm going to show you how to save a lot of money and a lot of time on flushing your heater core. I'm going to show you the perfect tool to use, something I've been using in the automotive industry for the last 15 years. Alright, before we get started, I did a short on this tool on how to do a flush. I got a lot of flack back for it. A lot of people 40 years of experience or whatnot. It's not good to do these flushes, blah, 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 blah. Alright, my theory is if you have to replace your heater core anyhow, why not try to flush it and see if you can save yourself some money and some time. I've been using that tool from that company for the last 15 years, and I would have to tell you, about 90% of the heater cores that I've flushed, I've been able to save with that tool. So I've been able to save customers a lot of time and a lot of money. So before you listen to everybody else that with all their 40 years of experience, definitely give this tool a try. Okay, now there are a couple things that this tool won't work on if your heater core is, number one, leaking. If it's leaking, don't even try it because it's just going to make the leak worse. And sometimes it don't get the worst of the clogs out of your heater core. So unfortunately, when it doesn't work for those two circumstances, then you will end up having to replace your heater core. But I would have, like I said, 90% of the time that I use this flush tool from Mighty Vac. I am not sponsored by them in any way, but I use the Mighty Vac flush tool right here. 90% of the time, I'm able to get the clog out of the system and not have to replace the heater core. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of tips on how you can tell if your heater core is starting to go bad, and then I'll show you how to use this tool. Okay, today I'm working on a 2010 JKU. The heater core is starting to show signs that it's going bad, and the reason why we can tell is one half of the dash, the vents this side are blowing warm. So this vent and that vent over there are blowing warm. This vent and the driver's side vent here are blowing kind of like lukewarm. They're not really, it's not super cold, but it's not super warm either. So I can show you right now, we're just about at operating temperature there. This vent should go well into the hundreds. I got this cranked on all the way up. Let's see, we're going so we're stopping at about 80 degrees is where this one stops at. So it's still getting kind of warm, but it's not getting warm enough. So we'll go to this vent on this side. We'll put the gauge in there, and now look at this thing just climb. So it's going way over 120. And right now it's hitting 130. It might climb to 140. So the driver's side vents are only blowing 80 degrees, and the passenger side are blowing 130. So that's a big difference. So if you notice one side of your vehicle is blowing cold and the other side is blowing warm, more than likely you're going to have an issue with your heater core. I'm going to show you one more way that you can tell if your heater core is having issues and you need to flush it. And if the flush don't work, then you'll have to replace it. But like I said, this tool from Mighty Vac is freaking awesome, and 90% of the time I can get the clog out and not have any issues and not have to replace the heater core. If you want to grab the tools that I'm using in this video, I linked them below in the description. Just so you know, those are affiliate links, so I may earn a small commission if you purchase them through them at no extra cost to you. It is a great way to support the channel, and I really appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to check the other way to see if your heater core is clogged. But this is the number one way to tell if you have a heater core issue, is one side of your vents are cold and the other side are warm. So the other way you can tell if the heater core is starting to go bad is you need to find the two heater core hoses coming out of the firewall, which here are my two right here next to each other, and you'll have the vehicle running with the heat on full blast. And then what you do, just be careful, either use a temp gun or just be careful. What I normally do is I just kind of grab the one hose and then I grab the other hose, and like this one here, this one's pretty warm, this one here is barely lukewarm, so I can tell that I have an issue with coolant flow through the heater core. So that is the other way you can tell if your heater core is clogged and it's going to need flushed. All right, now that you know how to check to see if your heater core is possibly clogged, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to use this flush tool. The tool that I have, it is from Mighty Vac. The part number is MV7270. I got this one off Amazon for like $90. I used to buy these off the tool truck, and I don't do that anymore. I buy a lot of stuff off Amazon or Harbor Freight or places like that. I try to save some money. But anyhow, I found this at Amazon for a lot cheaper than on the tool truck. So in this kit, it comes with some instructions here, which I've never once looked at them. And then it comes with the main tool, and then it comes with two different ends. So this is like a sprayer, like a high pressure sprayer nozzle end. You can like clean your engine bay and stuff with this nozzle, which I've never even used that nozzle. And then this is the one that I use here. This end just kind of pops on your tool, just like that. Now what you're going to need to do is you'll hook your garden hose up to this, turn your water on, and then you will need a compressor with an air line hooked to the end of this. So when you start to flush out the system, you just turn the water on, and then you just pump some air into it and give it a break, pump some more into it, give it a break, and eventually that air forces that water through there and flushes out that cooling system. It is a very good tool to use. I've actually used this same thing to flush out a radiator and a cooling system, a whole engine block actually. I had a customer that accidentally put laundry detergent inside their car, and they thought it was coolant, and it wasn't coolant. And I was able to flush out the radiator and everything, the block and everything with this tool. Now it might not have been perfect, but this person didn't have a lot of money, so I did my best with this flush tool, and I was able to save the customer's car. So pretty awesome. It's been 5 years, and last thing I've seen, they were still driving the car, so it worked. So that just goes a testament on how well this tool actually works. And like I said, there's some people that aren't a fan of doing these flushes, but like, if you're going to replace the heater core, why not try to flush it? You could save the customer money, and you can save a lot of time also. So anyhow, if you're doing this for yourself, try this flush first. This is a Mighty Vac. I got it for $90 off Amazon, but there are some knockoff ones on Amazon. I don't know how well those tools work. I can just tell you how well the Mighty Vac has worked for me, and I've used a lot of other Mighty Vac tools for like bleeding brakes and vacuum gauges and stuff like that, and they've all worked really well. So that's why I like to use Mighty Vac. Now before you start this flush, just make sure that the vehicle is cooled off and the coolant is not at operating temperature. You do not want to start on this when the coolant is hot. Let this vehicle sit for a little while before you start to do the flush. And then the next thing you do, just to make sure there's no pressure on the coolant system before you pop any of these hoses off, I always like to pop a little towel over top of their radiator cap just to make sure, because if there is some pressure, I'm not going to get hit with that coolant. So then I'll just pop the cap kind of loose and make sure the pressure is relieved, because I do not want to get burnt with this coolant. So there it is. I got the cap off, and I let this engine sit and cool off. So I am not doing this with the coolant scorching hot. Now that I located the heater core hoses coming out of the firewall, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these coolant hoses, and I'm going to get the tool hooked up to it. Okay, once you got the hoses disconnected, you'll hook the tool up to one end, and you'll put the other hose into a container to catch all the old fluid that's coming out. You want to be able to catch that and dispose of it properly. But what I'll do is I'll run this tool, so I turn the water on, and then I'll just squeeze the air every couple seconds, just kind of trying to flush the system. And what I'm looking for is the fluid to be as clear as possible, and I'll flush the one direction for about 5 minutes, and then I'll switch and flush back the opposite directions for about 5 minutes. And then once I'm done with that, then I'll get all the coolant hoses and everything hooked back up to the vehicle. And then unfortunately, once you unhook the coolant system like that, you will lose a little bit of fluid, so you will have to add fluid back to the system. So that is where I'm using this coolant fill funnel that I put on the vehicle. What this does, it allows me to add coolant to it without spilling, but I'll have the vehicle running while I'm adding coolant, so it's getting all the air out of the system. So I can get the vehicle up to operating temperature and make sure everything is working properly when I'm done flushing the heater core system. Okay, we got the Jeep up to operating temperature. We're going to go ahead and check the temps on the vents that we checked earlier to see if they changed or not. Alright, so we're at operating temperature, and the vents are on full blast here. If you can see it, it's kind of hard to see. We're going to go ahead and put... So this gauge over here was only reading 80 degrees earlier. So if this goes past 100 degrees, this flush, heater core flush, made a big difference. Look at that, climbing way past 100. I'm pretty happy with that. It's climbing up to that 130, right where that other vent was earlier. So this right here proves that we got the clog out of the heater core, because this side was only reading 80 degrees and the other side was reading 130. So now we are equal to what the other side was. So if you guys weren't a believer in the heater core flush, hopefully this changed your perspective on using a flush tool, because this thing just saved me from having to change the heater core. They're not too bad on these Jeep Wranglers, but I tell you what, on some of the vehicles that are a pain in the butt to get to, I'd rather try to do this flush before I had to replace the heater core, because it saves a lot of time, a lot of money.